What is going on, everyone? Xavier here, and welcome back to another Make Academy lesson. If you're just joining us, I'm documenting my journey from complete beginner to running my own AI automation agency. I'm following a 3-phase plan to get me there, but it all starts with mastering workflow automation, and that's why we're speeding through these lessons. We're right in the middle of the basics section where we just learned about data types. Today I'm covering units 3 and 4 of the data types and structures course. We're going to be going over mapping and data structures. If you want the full breakdown of my business plan, I'll put that video up there as well as in the description below. But without further ado, let's jump into today's lessons. Alright, we are back in Make Academy, an introduction to data types and data structures course. We are on unit 3, which is how to map data items. Hopefully these ones aren't as long because those first 2 units were a bit lengthy. So we're gonna get right into this and let's learn something new today. Unit introduction. You are now at the 3rd unit of the 2nd course within Make Basics. In our previous unit, you covered the different data types in Make and advanced data types. In this unit, you will build on this knowledge. You will learn about how to map data items and where these would be useful. Click Next. Before we make a start, let's refresh your knowledge of mapping. What is mapping in Make? A bundle of data that is output from a module, an event such as a timed or instant trigger that starts your scenario, or the process of connecting modules and moving data from one module to another. That is going to be C. Awesome. Click Next. Mapping recap. We got mapping. Mapping makes a bridge between 2 systems or modules so that when data is moved from a source module, it is accurate and usable at the target module. Mapping informs a module about how to use the data from previous modules. Examples you have experienced so far within Make Foundation and Make Basics courses are mapping the temperature and time. Real-world comparison. Let's think of this in a real-world scenario. You are moving home, source module, and you only want to take one item with you. You would load this item on the delivery van, the scenario, with the instruction of where it needs to be placed in your new home. Mapping. The delivery van would drive to your new home, target module, and unload the item according to your instructions. Okay, pretty straightforward. Mapping within Make. Within Make, we'll use the weather and email modules as an example. Imagine that you are working at a beach resort and you want to get the daily weather report on your email. Your first source module will get the daily forecast according to the location and time you set. It will output temperature and weather condition, which you can use and map in your email or target module. The email module performs the action automatically send an email. Within this module, you would take the data from the weather output such as temperature, humidity, wind, then you would map it within the email so that it would change dynamically every day and send you the weather report. Okay, click Next. As you might remember from the previous unit, when you map data items, you can see the data type which the specific field requires, as well as the data type of the individual pieces of data. The data types help you to assure the app you are using understands your data. Hover over the input fields and mappable items to see their data type. Check the image to your left to see it in action. This will help you make sure you're mapping items with the correct data type that match what's expected by the input field. Okay, yeah, we learned about mapping and data types. Next, mapping example, weather. Let's look at some use cases where you can see how to map different data type items. Text. If you previously built the Make Foundation use case, now would be a great opportunity to revisit it and have a look. In the weather app, there are 2 ways you can enter a location. If you choose cities, you would need to type your location as text. An example would be Prague. Notice how the data type text shows when you hover over the field name. This way you know which data type the field expects you to enter. A note about invalid types. Okay, I can click this little bubble. In the case you type a non-existing city or country, Make will automatically identify an error. In the weather app, if you enter a wrong country code or misspell the city name, you'll get an error on the module saying 404, city not found. Here we have CR instead of CZ. That's why we are getting an error because CR is the wrong country code, so Make cannot find the city. Go on to see the alternative way of entering location. I'm gonna click next slide. Numbers. Another way to enter the location is by coordinates. This might be useful if a place is small, you don't know how to spell it right, or are not sure about the country code. Notice how the number data type appears when you hover over the field name. If you decide to use coordinates, the fields expect number data type in the latitude and longitude fields. If you try to use text, as in our example, you will get the invalid number error. Right, so make sure you're using the right data type. Next slide. Identifying the item type. As you might remember, you can map individual items by clicking on them or dragging them. If you want to know the data type of each item, simply hover over them. Notice how the data types appear in angled brackets when you hover over it. This way you can make sure that the item data type matches the field data type. I'm gonna click next. Data type conversion. Type conversion is the process of converting values from one data type to another. Make tries to convert data automatically. If you map a data type in a field that expects a different data type, Make will attempt to correct this. For example, if you enter numbers in a text field, it is okay because the text data type accepts all the letters, numbers, and special characters. If you enter text with only numbers in a number field, Make will automatically convert it into a number. If you enter text in a number field, Make will return a validation error. Think of this in the context of a shape sorting toy. It will only accept certain shapes. If the conversion fails, parsing or formatting functions can help. These are very useful and you will learn about them in our next course, okay? So if it's a text or a number data type, there's a chance that it'll automatically reconvert them to the correct data type. But yeah, it's just important to know what you're trying to do with the data so you don't put it in the wrong data type field. Click next. Mapping collections. Let's take a look at how to map a collection/array. It requires a bit of extra clicks, but it's nothing too hard. As you might remember from the previous lesson, brief introduction to data types, a collection is a data structure that groups multiple different items into a single unit. Going back to the image of a collection as a kitchen drawer, imagine you only want to get a spoon from the drawer. You don't need other items inside it. Let's go on to see how to map an item inside a collection in Make. Next slide. You do not need to build this yourself, but feel free to open Make and follow what you see on screen. Let's take the weather get daily weather forecast module as an example. You want to get the weather forecast for today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow for Paris, France. Then you want to send the data from the weather app to a Google Sheet. Next slide. Your Google Sheet should have columns that represent the data you want to get, such as date, daily temperature, wind speed, and description. You'll need to map the field names with items. Notice how in the Google Sheet example, all the fields require text data type data. However, even if you enter date as a date data type or daily temperature as a number data type, it's okay. This is because of data type conversion mentioned before. Also, the text data type includes numbers and special characters too, which makes our life easier in this case. Okay, so yeah, we have data conversion. Next slide. In Google Sheets, you'd want to map the daily temperature. Notice the arrow in front of temperature. The arrow is a visual indicator of a collection or an array. It means there are more items inside. See how the temperature collection can be collapsed. A collection is one element in itself containing different items. Here, temperature is our collection and all the items under belong to it, e.g. day, night, morning, and evening temperature. So you can see collections by these little arrows here, little black arrows. Next slide. If you need to map a value that is nested in a collection, make sure to choose the exact item inside it. If you want to map the daily temperature, it is not enough to choose the temperature item because this is the overarching collection/folder. If you map this item, you'll receive an error when you run your scenario. Instead, you should map a specific value inside the collection if you want to retrieve the temperature data. If you want to get the temperature during the day, you should select day. Cool. Yeah, so you want to map the specific item inside the collection. If you don't want to receive an error, click next. And that's the end of the unit. Cool. So by now, you should have an understanding of mapping different data type items, where these would be useful, and data type conversion. Yeah, cool. Good stuff. Now let's move on to this final unit, Unit 4, which is data structures. I'm gonna click mark this task as complete. Unit Introduction. Welcome to the fourth and final unit of this course. Within this unit, you'll explore data structures. In this short piece of content, you will discover what are data structures, learn how this relates to data types, and understand how data structures are created. Click next. Data structure example. In the previous units, you have learned about basic data types, collections, and arrays. These can be combined together. A collection can contain simple data types, but also other collections, which can contain arrays, which in turn contain collections, etc. When you want to call an API, you always need to know what it expects as the input and what it returns as an output. For example, does it need a single text data type with the ID of the contact you want to retrieve? Or does it need a complex contact collection containing first name, last name, and email if you want to create a new contact? To describe the format of the data you send or receive, you need a data structure. The data structure description is the format of the information you send or receive, so that every app/module is able to correctly input it. Let's visualize this with an example. Let's imagine information about a company and its employees. Click the image to view a comparison. Okay, I'm gonna click this little picture. So we have example data of company and its employees, and we have a description of the data structure. So it looks like the data structure is just how it's presented and like how it looks to make when you're sending it and receiving it. So we have the name as the text, date as the date, and it looks like it's just breaking down what these elements are, right? You have the items in the collection, as well as another collection inside the collection, and this employees section is an array, meaning it's one section with more than one collection. Cool, awesome, got it. I'm gonna click next. Real life example. Let's look at an example of where else a data structure may be used. Ben wants to send Paul a parcel containing cheese. In order to send the parcel itself, there is a specific format Ben has to follow so the postal service knows where to send the parcel. The postal company has a predefined format that he must use. This may be something like first and last name, street address, zip code, city, or country. The postal service provided the data structure of an address so that they understand who to deliver the parcel/letter to. And if Ben doesn't follow this structure, there is a chance the delivery never arrives. No cheese for Paul. Data structures are used outside Make as well. They are also called schemas, and it defines the format of any data that is shared when providing or consuming a service. Different apps need a specific format to be able to communicate together. Okay, click next. All right, now we have what is a data structure and why is it important? When you want to use a module, e.g. weather or Google Sheets, you have to understand the type of information the module needs and the type of information it returns. In the previous example of sending a parcel, you would need to know which fields are required for the parcel to be shipped to Paul. That's where data structures are used. They help describe what is required to exchange any information. Make uses data structures everywhere to allow you to map your items and to be able to transform the data into a different format if needed. So the way they're describing it kind of just seems like data structures is kind of like a template to make sure that the information doesn't return any errors. And they have these little bubbles that we can click on. I'm gonna click on this one next to address. This is a collection called address. You can recognize a collection thanks to the down arrow that appears to the left of address. This collection contains multiple fields: city, street, country, etc. So we know about the little arrow that contains the collection. We have another bubble here next to employees. This is an array. You can recognize an array based on the brackets, which appear to the right of employees. In this specific example, because of the down arrow, you can identify that it's an array of collections that contain different fields such as role, first name, etc. So we got one next to this first and last name too. This is an individual field. It can be any simple data type: text, number, date, or Boolean. Okay, and we have one more over here next to the last name. When you map a field contained in an array, you can see the brackets. It allows you to specify the index of the element you want to map. For instance, if the array contains 10 items, you can type 5 in the brackets to obtain the 5th item. If you don't type any number, make will automatically pick the first item. Cool. So yeah, inside the brackets, you can put the index of the array to return the specific one. We learned about that in the last 2 units, I believe. I'm gonna click next. How are data structures created? You know now that in most instances, make automatically determines the data structure for you. However, there are use cases where you may need to create the data structure yourself. For example, when you are using a data store within Make or connecting to an external API. Data structures are covered much later in the Make learning path in our advanced course, but it's worth knowing what they are before you continue. If you want to learn more about data structures, view the content on data stores and data structures in Make Advanced. Click to view the examples to the right to see how data is structured within Make. So it seems like data structures are a little more advanced. So I'm not really too worried about it right now. It seems like it's done automatically for you. So we'll just cross that bridge when we get to it. But we do have some examples here. Data structure automatically generated by Make. Let's look at an example of transferring information where the data structure is defined by Make. You don't need to build this. The aim of this scenario is to get a record from Salesforce, which contains user data, and use the information to create a contact of the same user within Google Contacts. Next slide. This is what the output from Salesforce looks like. As you can see, there is a lot of relevant information we can use in the subsequent modules. First name, last name, email, etc. The data structure has been automatically provided by Make, so you can directly map the fields from Salesforce with the next modules. Next slide. To create the contact, you need to map the relevant fields. Yeah, so we've done mapping. This is what it looks like when it's just automatic. It just automatically has the structure for you, or we can just drag and drop the mappings. Next slide. Let's look at the data structure for Salesforce Get a Record and how this compares to Google Contacts Create a Contact. Notice that whilst the highlighted fields have different names, they represent the same data. So yeah, different modules have different data structures. They'll show the same information, but it'll just look differently in different modules, I guess. There's one more slide. As data is being transferred from one app to another within Make, no data structure needs to be created or modified in any way. Make handled it for you. You just have to map fields from the Salesforce output to the Google Create a Contact input. Yeah, so everything's done for you. And then we have data structure manually defined by the user. Let's look at another example. Here we want to call the service of an application for which Make doesn't have a proper app and module. It requires us to directly call its API. You can learn more about this later in Make Advanced in the API calls with HTTP modules course. You already know the format of the contact object coming from Salesforce, but Make can't guess the format expected by the other application. You have to help Make know its data structure before you can do any transformation. Next slide. The output from Salesforce looks like this. There is a lot of relevant information that can be used from Get a Record and subsequent modules. The data structure has been automatically provided by Make, so you can directly map the fields from Salesforce in the next module. So the output for the Salesforce Get a Record, since they already have it, they have the data structure already laid out. Next slide. In this example, the destination application is not available in Make, meaning there is no apps or modules, but it does have an API available. In this case, the destination is an online address book for a made-up company called Makebook. Since Make doesn't provide any app/module for Makebook, you have to use the HTTP modules. This topic will be covered in greater depth in Make Intermediate. Okay, next slide. In order to create a new contact in Makebook, its API requires a specific format of data. Usually you can find details of this in their online documentation. Note, Makebook doesn't exist, so you won't find this in our documentation. There is a 100% chance that this format is different than the one used by the Salesforce API. The name of the fields, where they appear, their type, etc. In that case, you have to manually create a new data structure that fits the format the Makebook API requires. In the next step, you'll see an example of this. Next slide. Let's look at the data structures for Salesforce Get a Record. and how this compares to your Makebook data structure. So it looks pretty much the same, just missing some underscores here, and they're just in a different order. I guess it's just pretty much the layout. Like I said, template, but it's like the layout of the information, right? That's what it seems like. Next slide. You have seen that the Makebook data format is quite different from the Salesforce data format, so much different. Once you have created the new data structure for Makebook, you can use the create JSON module to map fields from the Salesforce output to the Makebook input. The transformed data is then sent to the Makebook API, where it's used to create a new contact. Without the new data structure, it would not have been possible to do any mapping to Makebook. In the first course of Make Advanced, you will learn how to create a new data structure. Cool, yeah, so you can use apps that aren't available in Make as well. It's just you'd have to know their API data structure that you can apparently find on the website of whatever app you're trying to use, and basically through some computer magic you can link that application or that program and still use it in Make. But we don't even know how to do that yet, and we are going to learn how to do it in the Make Advanced course, and it looks like a little bit in the intermediate course too. But let's see, we have a comparison here. Automatic versus manual. In the automatic, Make is able to automatically determine the data structure of the output of any API endpoint/external service. The Make team has already worked on the most common applications and services to define the data structure they expect to return. It means that you don't need to build them manually. The data structure automatically determined by Make can't be manually modified. However, if you test a module when building a scenario, and if the format of the data has changed, Make will automatically adapt the corresponding data structure. And for manually, we have, even if a data structure is not available in Make, you can create as many as you want. You can create a new data structure for any type of text document. For example, it can be for a CSV file where you define the column names, or it can be for the input of an external service, as seen in the comparison on this interaction. And manual data structures can be modified anytime. So it just seems like you have a little bit more control with the manual structures, but that's only because the automatic data structures that Make has seem to be pretty solid, right? So maybe these will come in handy later, being able to modify your own data structures, but as of right now, we don't need that information. So we're gonna click next. What does it look like in the scenario builder, part 1? In the previous example, if you want to configure a new module, Make shows you a pop-up with all the fields you can get from the response of the previous modules, A, and all the fields that are expected by the module you are configuring, B. From this pop-up, you can easily map all the fields you need. In order to provide you with all this information, it uses data structures. Without them, you wouldn't be able to do any mapping. Most of the data structures are automatically handled by Make. So without data structures, we can't map. Got it. Next. Part 2. For most of Make apps and modules, you don't need to worry about their data structures, but there are cases when you need to create your own. For example, an external service that does not exist within Make, but has its own API. This would require you to define your own data structure in order to transfer data to it. Got it. Click next. And that is the end of the unit. Great stuff. We kind of already knew how to map things. We're just clicking on them. This is just telling us what we're doing and like the data types of the items that we're mapping, right? So, cool. And data structures are like a template or like a, like a structure, how it's presented. Pretty easy stuff today. Just a lot of information. I would say these units are a little bit longer, but I mean, that's to be expected. We're covering more advanced stuff now. We're not just talking about the layout or like the UI anymore. We're actually going into the nitty gritty, the meat and potatoes, So I mean, it's not going to be the most interesting stuff, but it will be valuable in the end. So we have a recap. A data structure helps you to describe how the data is formatted. Is it a basic data type, an array, or a combination of all these? Make is able to create a data structure from a JSON, XML, or CSV document. Also, Make has already defined the data structure of the data used in the apps and modules present in this solution. And finally, you can manually create a new data structure when you want to call an external service and you know the format of the data it expects. Yeah, so very good information. Starting to get more technical, guys. This stuff will help us in the future when we're creating more complex stuff, right? Now, all we have to do for this course is to complete our end of course assessment. Should be 10 questions. Yep, 10 questions. So hopefully next video will be a little shorter. Just do these 10 questions and the first unit of the next course. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. If you found any of this information interesting or you want to see more, please feel free to drop a like, comment your thoughts, or hit that subscribe button. But with that being said, I hope you guys are all doing well, and I'll see you in the next one. If you're interested in building your own agency and you're just starting out, be sure to check out my video on setting up your first scenario. I'll put that video on the screen right now. That should help you get started with your journey.